Troy, good to see you again.
Nice to see you too.
Yeah. So
How are you?
good, good. So excited to jump into this. Um, would love to hear from the beginning your thoughts when you were first approached for the role and what you wanted to do jumping into this dark and twisted world.
Well, on the award season campaign for Coda, all the nominees were attending all these events, and I met Zach and Kate because Zach was a nominee for King Richard at the time, and the two of them we ended up chatting quite a few times, and they said, "Hey, Troy, what type of role would you like to play that you haven't done yet?" And I said, "I'd love to play the villain." And I thought maybe they didn't take me seriously. I didn't know. Then about a year later, I got a script and they had written this role for me of Joe Mancuso. And I thought, hey, I get to play the boss. This is really cool. So they kept their word, and that's how I got started and involved in this production. And later on, I found out Jason Bateman and Jude Law were involved as well. And what a thrill to be a part of this.
So good. I love hearing this story, and I'm going to jump more into it later. But I know fans, even though it's a limited series, fans are kind of hoping that your character, we're going to get to see a second season with your character being the guy.
Yeah, we'll see. There's a few ideas out there and a few seeds have been planted. So we'll see if there's any interest. You never know. Like Star Wars, for example. The Mandalorian, you had Boba Fett, and you have all these, you know, expansions of characters into their own series. So it never hurts to try.
Joe Mancuso is an interesting guy, that's for sure. Um, what scene did you feel like you just nailed this season?
My favorite scene was the coffee scene with Jude Law.
Mhm.
Spilling coffee on him was a lot of fun. And Jason Bateman was also directing that episode. So the three of us working together was one of my favorite moments and my favorite memories working on the show.
Oh, it's one of my favorite moments to watch. Um, how do you feel like the show pushed you to new limits?
I'm sure a lot of folks might think of me, as what I played in Coda, but I wanted to show something the opposite. I didn't want to play someone too exaggerated. I wanted to play a character who's beneath the surface, who has a good heart and knows what's right or wrong, and he tries to avoid conflict, but then everything gets blurred, of course, and becomes gray. So for me, it was really fun to develop this character because you've never seen any mafiosos who happen to be deaf really in the history of films and series. And so I wanted to give the audience a new perspective and a fresh take.
That's actually when you and I first met was during the award season for Coda, and you're just a phenomenal actor. So I was so excited to see you in this role. Um, I do want to hear more about Joe Mancuso's backstory and how that evolved. Tell me about that.
So when I got the script, I was trying to use my imagination. So imagine Joe Mancuso's headquarters are in the Russian bathhouse. And maybe when he was younger, he was working there as a janitor or a cleaner, cleaning the baths. And the mafiosos who worked there, they began to trust him and develop that relationship. They were safe with him because he couldn't overhear their sensitive conversations they were having, and of course, couldn't snitch on them. And so he built his way up and rose in power that way. So that's what I imagined how Joe Mancuso rose to power, and he really understood the business well. And most importantly, is when you develop that backstory, you can add a lot more nuance and flavor to the character and show the intention beneath the surface. Without that backstory, you're just saying your lines, and that's lame. It's really important to have that backstory and that history.
Well, and also I was wondering in it, where was your personal compass for deciding where your character stands ethically?
Me as Troy or me as the character Joe Mancuso?
You as Troy.
Well, I think you have to have a meeting and talk face to face, and that's the only way to solve a problem. Seeing is believing, right? So you need to see someone eye to eye rather than solve a conflict over the phone. I prefer to do it face to face, and you feel the vibes with the people you're talking with. And importantly, is you have to trust the interpreter as well, because it really takes me a long time to trust an interpreter because the interpreter can take advantage and doesn't know what I'm not always hearing what they're saying, for example, or the words that they're choosing. So you have to be really careful. So there's a lot beneath the surface. But I think the biggest issue for me and for Joe Mancuso is trust.
Mm. Okay, that leads me to my next question. How would Joe Mancuso describe Joe Mancuso?
Joe is very protective of his family. He's trying to do what's best for his family, and there has to be boundaries. He's trying not to be involved with others too much. He has to keep it inside the family because that's where he feels safe. And especially with his son, he has a lot of issues with his son and maybe issues with himself. Is he a good father or did he fail as a father? He's trying to do what's best for his son. He wants his son to be successful on his own and he keeps failing. So maybe Mancuso's wife died at some point. And so, of course, he has mixed feelings. He's juggling a lot and going through a lot.
Is
And he hopes to avoid problems as much as possible, but of course they become unavoidable.
yeah. Is that different? Like, how would you describe Joe Mancuso and who do you think he is at the heart of the story?
I think Mancuso is pretty street savvy and street smart. He knows the surroundings and the inner workings of the business. He may not be following the law, but he's aware of it. And he has the habit of signing with one hand, his right hand, because he keeps his left hand maybe on his gun,
Mm, mm,
because you might lose a few seconds using your dominant hand to grab your gun. So maybe his left hand is on his gun, and that makes him more interesting.
mm, mm.
You know, he has his different way of communicating, almost like street sign language or a New York accent. Deaf people have our own dialects too, and we can communicate with one hand as well and really play around with that. And, when his son is there, he feels free to just bawl him out and yell at him. But in a business meeting, he might sign with one hand really calmly.
So, in what way would you say your co-stars helped you shape a scene, one of your scenes, whether and was there anything, let me put it this way, was there anything unexpected where your co-stars helped you shape one of your scenes, whether it was intentional or unintentional?
I think I have one good example. So there was a scene when we're sitting in a car that was parked, and Jude Law's in the back seat, and Chris Quay, who plays Babbitt, is in the front seat. And there's a phone set in between the two seats. And we're calling Jason Bateman, um, his character, on speakerphone. But Chris Coy, when he's signing, is making too much noise as he's signing because, of course, you can have these slaps or ambient noises when you're signing. And so they'll say, hey, they'll be able to hear what you're doing over the phone. You have to sign quieter. And he never thought of it that way. So we had to do another take, and he was signing a lot more carefully. And it made more sense that he was more sensitive. And I thought that really influenced the acting. I think on set we were pretty open and of sharing that information and helping each other out. And, many actors haven't had the experience of working with an actor who happens to be deaf before. And it's the other way around. If I was hearing, how would I make my acting choices differently? So it's good to have that shared experience and collaborate and work together to make the show a success. And I think we accomplished it.
Yeah. Did you get to do any improv? Was anything that went into the scene that was unplanned?
There wasn't a lot of improv because we had three cameras in a lot of the scenes, and there was a lot of blocking. And so there were several shots. And so it can be risky to improv. If you just have a single camera or it's or like a medium shot, you can improvise. But I needed to be prepared as an actor and really be consistent with all of my choices that I was making. But if I had a question, of course, I'd ask the director, "Hey, can I try it this way?" After the director's happy, I said, "Hey, can we do one more take and try it my way?" Sometimes they might like it or the editor might like it, but it's nice to give the editor those choices. If they have a hard choice, then that's good. If it's an easy choice, it means you might have done a bad job.
Well, and talking about getting into character, was there any particular prop or costume or something that really helped you find Joe Mancuso, really helped you feel like Joe Mancuso?
My favorite prop, props really influence sign language and body language and how you're handling a prop. For example, a gun. You can't just sign with a gun in your hand like this. You have to be very sensitive and keep it in one place. You have to be extremely careful, and that really influenced my body language and my control. And I remember I was directing a scene with a female actor who had a pot. And I said, imagine there's hot water in that pot. You can't shake it around. You would be spilling water everywhere. So during break, I filled this pot with water and the actor wasn't aware of it. And the next take, the water was spilled everywhere. And so then the next take, I saw her body language change and she was being very careful with that pot. And so props can really, really influence an actor.
Mhm.
And that was my favorite, was the gun.
So, being that you are dealing with such a twisted subject matter, the world that you were playing in was so dark. How did you guys bring levity to the set?
There was a lot of levity on set, actually. And I remember I had a conversation with Jude Law. We were in the makeup trailer and we were having a nice chat, and my interpreter was there, and we were all chatting. And I remember we were laughing so hard. And I don't know if you want to put this in or not, but we were talking about a tattoo. And I told this joke about how if you have two W's on both butt cheeks and you bend over, it will say wow. And we were all laughing about stupid jokes like that. And I'm like, hey, deaf people have a sense of humor too, so it was fun to share those moments and those jokes.
Oh my gosh, what a dream to all be on set together. Oh my gosh, you guys must have been so much fun to hang out with. So, you
Oh, and Jason Bateman, I think I have another story during a
did,
break when they were setting up the next scene. There was another prop and it was a Nerf football. And so he threw the Nerf football to me and I caught it and we were kind of just chatting and throwing the football back and forth and the interpreter's heads going back and forth like a ping pong ball. And then it's like, okay, guys, got to get back to work. So it was nice to have those moments of levity on set. And everyone was really easy to work with. They were really friendly.
yeah, I feel like that deepens your connection too as actors.
We know what our job is, we know what our roles and our responsibilities are. And so it was great to interact both on and off set with everybody.
So you've always shown how expressive physical performance can be. How did Black Rabbit push your understanding of that craft?
As far as sign language, the challenge for me was really holding it in, limiting it, keeping it simple. For me, less is more. And that was the challenge for me with sign language because sign language is extremely expressive with facial expressions, with body language. So I really had to hold a lot of it in and be under control. And I had to really keep it as simple as I possibly could and keep those emotions beneath the surface. Be gentle, be under control. The words are powerful, and what's behind your eyes is powerful. So you really want the feeling to get across rather than an exaggerated gesture.
Absolutely. Looking back, do you feel like there was any role or anything you experienced that helped you prepare for this role?
Long ago, I played a bad guy in Criminal Minds. I was a guest star, and that was my first one until Black Rabbit. And so I really had to prepare for this one because it was a big role. And so I felt very prepared. I really wanted to show the best I could and really deliver. And so I wanted to make sure it was really valuable for everyone's time and that all this mutual investment was in each other. You don't just want to show up on set and say your line. You really want to bring something unique there. And I hope that I want everyone was satisfied with my work.
Yeah. You've now influenced how the industry views representation in a major way. How do you measure the evolution of opportunities since your breakthrough?
I've seen several more opportunities pop up for deaf actors. The Last of Us, Echo, that's one of the Marvel series. It's called Echo. Dahmer had some deaf characters on Netflix. So you see deaf roles pop up here and there, and I'm really hoping to see more. And so there is a slow transformation. I really am believing that I'm witnessing a slow transformation, and deaf people and disabled people are a part of the disability conversation. And it's really nice to have deaf kids see themselves on screen because when I was growing up, I didn't see any deaf people on screen until Marley Matlin.
Yep.
And so imagine that all those years of watching movies and TV shows, never ever seeing even one deaf person. So I really hope that Hollywood is ready for this step forward. And it seems like they're taking it, albeit very slowly.
Me too. Who from Black Rabbit would you say helped you see your artistry from a new perspective?
I think it was pretty even. Yeah, you mean like another actor I was working opposite from that influenced my performance, or I think the team of henchmen who worked underneath me influenced me a lot because we worked really closely together. And so sometimes they would have a suggestion that might have worked, or I had one for them. But the important thing is to collaborate and work together because sometimes you're trying to figure out what to do and how to approach sign language. And of course, uh, my ASL consultant, Ann Tomasetti, was on set as well. And she was watching the monitor during the shoot to make sure everything went smoothly. So really trust is key there. Without a deaf ASL consultant, you don't know if the editor might chop off my signs right in the middle of my dialogue. And so it's nice to have a deaf eye there to make sure the audience doesn't feel like something's missing and that it's accessible to everyone.
Absolutely. I do want to talk about fans and their reaction. What is the most surprising fan question or message that you've received about the show so far?
Some people have asked me, is it true? Are there deaf mobsters out there? I heard that question. And I said, yes, I believe there are several, and several have existed in history, but no one has mentioned them
Yeah.
because back then there wasn't any access. How would they have collected that information? So they may have gotten away or never gotten caught. If they would have gotten caught, we would have known. And so I think Black Rabbit is an opportunity to see a deaf character who happens to be a mafioso. So it's great to give the audience that experience.
Absolutely. I would also love to know if you could pick any fictional character, film or TV, and invite them into the world of Black Rabbit, who would you pick and why?
I'd love to invite Javier Bardem's character from No Country for Old Men, maybe Robert De Niro, maybe Joe Pesci. I'd love to have them on the show. Hey, am I doing okay? Am I believable? Am I convincing enough? That would be a lot of fun.
I love it. That's season two. This is what we want for season two. And you're on it, Troy. Yeah.
I hope so. Hey, it couldn't hurt to try. Let's see what happens.
Mhm. Audiences fell in love with you after Coda. In Black Rabbit, what do you hope awards voters notice about your performance?
I hope that audiences recognize that my character isn't necessarily friendly or nice. After Black Rabbit, some people said they weren't sure to approach me if I was actually nice or not. And I said, no, that's not me. That's just the character I'm playing. I'm still Troy. I'm a pretty nice guy. But it was interesting to see how people reacted to me differently after Coda and after Black Rabbit.
Yeah.
And that tells you something that, I can have range. Deaf people can play different types of roles. So that's what I'm trying to show audiences, different perspectives and really open up these doors and give more opportunities to deaf actors. And what are they waiting for?
Yeah. I have to tell you, and you're so talented. You played this character in such a way that even with all of this, I guess, moral ambiguity, or whatever he was doing, you were still rooting for him. You're still on his side. You still felt for him and what he was going through. So you did. I mean, I think what you did with him is brilliant. I want more of Joe Mancuso. I want to know about this man's life. I want to know his history. I want to know where he's going. And you did that. That was really cool.
That's what I was hoping for. And that's a dream if you can make it happen. Somehow it worked out. In Star Wars, there's the character Boba Fett in The Mandalorian who just had a small role. And now there's this Boba Fett series. And so there's been some rumors that they're going to make a movie as well about Boba Fett. So maybe they can do something similar with Black Rabbit and Joe Mancuso. Who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, I could see it. I could totally see it. We talked a little bit about the backstory that you gave him, but if there were a second season, what would you want for Joe Mancuso?
I think Joe Mancuso would be very lonely after losing his son. He doesn't have a wife. He's pretty alone. Should he continue running this business or should he give up and travel the world? Or maybe he needs to move the business to another location. Maybe he has some family members somewhere, like a long lost brother or sister somewhere, and they reconnect. Maybe somewhere in Florida because he was planning on sending his son Junior to Florida. So maybe he has some relationship with some folks down in Florida, something like that.
I love this. I'm all for it. This is great. Troy, thank you. Thank you so much for today. It's been really, really wonderful catching up with you.
Likewise, really enjoyed chatting with you too, and nice to see you again. And I'm sure we'll bump into each other again in the future.
Absolutely. See you later.
See you later.